Hello everybody, and thank you so much for joining us on this Instagram Live. A big thank you to the Purple Turtles for having me on here. And because they sent out an invite of me in a sari, I decided I couldn't show up here looking like Godzilla's bride or in my aerobic jhadu pocha avatar. So I've decided to show up for you in a sari. But I'm so happy that all of you could join me today. Our topic for the day is letting go of negative emotions. Okay, so before we begin, I just wanted to ask you by a wave, in this last month, how's everybody been feeling? Has anyone woken up on any day with like a feeling of like a cloud of gloom over their heads? There's some days when you just don't feel like getting out of bed, or you're just feeling like low or heavy, or even just dead inside, not even feeling anything. Yes, I'm seeing some waves there. I've had those days as well. So if you have, that's what I hope we'll get an understanding to today. And really, when we start by understanding our feelings and befriending them and not being frightened of them, that's the first step towards, well, reframing them, let's put it that way. Okay, so overall, before I introduce myself, let me just tell you what we're going to be covering in today's talk over the next 15 minutes or so. Number one, that our emotions are not as easy to label as we thought. Okay, there's research on that now, and that's what I'll be sharing. Number two, our emotions are not universal. We'll talk more about that. Number three, you can actually define your own emotions. Number four, you can therefore direct your own emotions. And number five, because I didn't want to keep it completely serious as well, we're going to have a bit of a clue hunt in the course of this talk. Okay, so here's how that works. Over the course of the next 20 minutes, 15 minutes, I'm going to be talking about one book, one pop song, one metal band and two of their songs, one movie, one actor, one epic poem, one Pacific island, two foreign words that we've adopted into English. There might be more, but definitely two that will stick out. Okay, and wherever you spot them, I'd like you to tell me the answer, okay, on the chat. This is a rapid fire round in that sense. So, very quickly, let me introduce myself. I'm Sandhya Krishnan, and I'm a wellness coach. Mindfulness, productivity, some of the areas that I believe personally that they're all interrelated. I work with young professionals, I work with individuals, helping them find their authentic answers to the conflicts that they face, also help, put them on this channel to help them reach their goals. And it's really a wonderful, wonderful job, and I feel blessed to have this opportunity and blessed to be here with you today. Questions are welcome through the talk. It's free-flowing, but I'll begin by telling you a little bit about why our emotions are not as hard-coded as we believe them to be, okay? Oh yes, if you want to reach out to me, if you have any questions for me outside of this talk, feel free to check my website. It's www.dynamicliving.co. I also have a YouTube channel. It just goes by my name, Sandhya Krishnan. So feel free to post a comment there and ask me your question, and I'll do my best. I will surely help you find an answer, or at least try and give you a perspective on the issue that you have raised. Right. I know the topic said letting go of negative emotions, but I'm going to start with the premise that our emotions just are. They're not good, they're not bad, positive, negative, they just are. Okay? Now, that's the start of our understanding. We seem to think of things as good, bad, good to have, not good to have, and that puts a lot of pressure on us. It's how we've been conditioned over the years, over millennia in fact, But perhaps now, in the last 10 years, for example, we've actually been able to look inside the brain. Neuroscience has made so many advances. We now have functional MRIs that can actually tell us, when we're feeling something, or when we're doing something, or when we're experiencing something, what actually goes on in our brain. Or rather, we're able to see what's sort of lighting up in our brain. Interpreting it is still flawed, interpreting it is still incomplete. And that's where also the study of philosophy comes in, and our understanding of behaviorism. We try and sort of connect the dots, but that gives us a completely new understanding of things, which was hitherto sort of reported behavior or just observed behavior, which is what the bulk of psychology and behaviorism has been to date. So, I'm going to be referencing a very interesting book. It's called How Emotions Are Made by Dr. Lisa Barrett. I was fascinated by her because she's not just a psychologist. Don't forget about the clue hunt. She's not just a psychologist, but she's also a neuroscientist. So she has a multidisciplinary approach to sort of understanding the brain and our emotions. And these were some of our findings. One is that our emotions are not like these call came in, are not these distinct little patterns that we have in our head. There's some very famous psychological diagrams that show our primary images and then our secondary and tertiary images. It may not be as simplistic as that, or indeed in the Pixar movie Inside Out, where all the emotions were depicted as cute little characters that resided inside a girl's head. They are in fact a little bit more amorphous than that, in that several parts of our brain will actually be involved in the creation of an emotion, and also that this belief that each of our emotions is triggered from a particular part of our brain, right? Okay, now our pituitary gland, our hypothalamus is stimulated, and blah blah blah. We have this reaction. We see somebody dying. We go through our menu of emotions, and then we start crying. We're going to understand that it's a lot more complicated than that, or perhaps less complicated actually, and therefore it frees us from these sort of expectations of behavior, and therefore judgment on behavior that we feel is not appropriate or is undesirable. All right, so this was called the classical understanding of emotions, that they were sort of distinct and that we have primary, secondary. Also, that our emotions, okay, so basically what it means is that our emotions are constructed by us. They're constructed at the time of an event, and they're constructed in different parts of our brain. What does that mean? That means that when we're presented with a situation, our brain will tap into different aspects of it depending on what our particular conditioning is, depending on what our particular makeup is, and will then produce, it's like artificial intelligence almost. It's going to present a reaction or response based on what it predicts to be the appropriate one for the situation. Now, what the brain is actually referencing is a lot of things, right? It's not as simple as fight, flight, or this is the situation and this is the appropriate response. It's as sort of nuanced as saying that, oh, here's this man, here's this authority figure telling me how to behave, and for some reason his voice sounds like, my principal in school who was a complete bully and very unfair. Now, all of those memories, when we access that memories, all of the emotions associated with that memory are also getting accessed, and then our response then gets conditioned with all of this in. So do you see how that is? That means that we have a whole range of emotions. We have a whole, it's like a rainbow, it's like a Pantone card of emotions, really. And anger is not as simple as, just an angry voice or a loud voice. Look at our everyday examples. We don't always show anger in the same way. Sometimes it's with like gritty silence. Sometimes, yes, we do raise our voices. Sometimes it shows in our body, you can see your veins sticking out. You feel that something rising in your chest. Or sometimes your anger shows up as physical action. You want to hit out, you want to act. All of this lies within the realm of anger. It's what you construct in that moment. Not to go deeper into that for now, but the other aspect also is that our emotions are not universal. Okay, we believe again through socialization, through our teachings, that all of us feel anger, sorrow, joy in more or less the same ways, and that we'd meet people anywhere in the world, and it's more or less going to be the same. But no, guess what? Again, all of these are very, very culture specific, socialization specific, experience specific. If you go to Tahiti, for example, you'll actually, they don't even have a word for sadness. Their word for sadness is the closest equivalent to like the fatigue you feel after flu. Imagine that. No sadness even, okay? We seem to think that smiling is like a universal response to happiness or as a greeting. But the ancient Greeks and Romans didn't smile a lot. In fact, smiling came into vogue only like in the Middle Ages, and after sort of dentistry came into effect, and I think we felt confident enough to flash our teeth. But even then, look at us. I don't know if you know this in South India, and I'm sure, I don't know if the other parts of India, we were taught growing up that when you smile, please don't show your teeth. This is how a good girl smiled. Or even if you're laughing, it's okay. So again, cultural nuances and how your experiences. And on the other extreme, you have Jim Carrey, who will flash his all 32 pearly whites and his 500 megawatt smile, but was also carrying deep sadness, deep depression within him. So what am I trying to say with all of this? That let's stop thinking about, that, oh my God, this is what I'm feeling, it's sadness, I need to now make myself happy. Sometimes, and like with the example of the Tahitians, there are other, even in English, for example, we didn't even have words for, there's this feeling of pleasure that you get at somebody else's misfortune. It's quite a delightful feeling, very wicked, but we didn't have a word for it, and we didn't really place it as an emotion. But guess what? The Germans did. It was called Schadenfreude, and we adopted it, and now we love that feeling. Similarly, there's déjà vu from the French. We now know what that feeling is. We have made a feeling out of it. We've made an emotion out of it, and it never was before. So there you go. It doesn't have to be going forward either. Hello to everybody that's joining in. So, long story short, these are the seeds of emotions that are being planted in us. Okay? Yes, we are born with certain innate accents. By and large, they range from the spectrum of pleasure to displeasure, calm to agitation. Babies experience that from the moment that they're born. But right from childhood, we're teaching children things. It's like we look at a baby and we say, oh, you're looking happy today. And the baby's internalizing, this expression means happy. Or a mother is going to say, oh, that expression tells me that you are angry. Why is my baby? I'm sorry about the annoying baby talk. It's been a long time since I've spoken to a baby. But you get what I'm saying, right? From everywhere around us, these ideas are being reinforced. But because these are beliefs, because these are conditioning, because this is socialization, it also means that this isn't us. And that we are actually free from these if we break free from this labeling and if we break free from this conditioning. How do we do that? That's what we're going to come to next. All right? So go ahead, keep asking questions. I'm sorry, you're going to have to type them in. I won't be able to add you live onto the call. But yes, questions are most welcome. I'm going to do my best to answer them. So, typically, emotions have been looked at as like this big iceberg, like the one that hit the Titanic, where you just see the tip of it on top, and there's the bulk of the iceberg below the water. Or like Mariah Carey sang, "You've got me feeling emotions deeper than I ever dreamed of," that come to the forefront. Now, what I'm trying to say is that just like we shouldn't look at diseases as merely a sum of symptoms, but as dis-ease, things in the mind that can precipitate symptoms, things in the mind that can exacerbate symptoms, things in the mind that can also speed up or slow down healing. Similarly, we can think of emotions as, in a sense, just biological processes, you know. At the end of the day, for every feeling that we need to feel, the body needs to allocate resources, it needs to allocate hormones, it needs to allocate energy for you to have the appropriate response at any given point of time. And guess what's happening now? Because our emotions are so conditioned by our responses and so dependent on the environment around us, at times like this, where there is so much going on, we're being flooded with information, we're being presented with a situation that our brains have never encountered before. It's going through all its files, but never in the history of mankind has there ever been a situation like this before. Is it any wonder that we're working overtime trying to process all of this, that we're getting fatigued, overwhelmed, we're feeling dead inside because of just the sheer volume of data, of stimulus that's hitting us on a daily basis? That explains that cloud, that explains that tiredness. The body has to work so hard in order to process all of this and to give you appropriate responses for you to deal with the world. And sometimes it just runs out, you know. It also needs to digest, you know. It needs to keep your body working. It needs to keep your heart beating. It runs out. And so that brings us to the root of how we're going to actually deal with these emotions. When you're tired, what do you think the simplest answer is? We are going to rest. Just go to sleep if you have to. Get that rest. Reduce the amount of stimulus in your environment. Give your body a chance to regulate itself, to rebalance the body budget, and to reallocate resources such that it can change the focus of your mind, such that your mind can then reframe and refocus and change the kind of emotions that you're having. All right? And for that, on the other way, okay, sleep is not always the most practical solution, especially when we also now have to work from home and do all of our chores ourselves. But definitely any kind of rest that you can grab, a walk is a great way to reset your body budget and to re-energize your brain. This is where mindfulness, meditation, all of that comes in. But just in order to be able to manage this going forward, I was looking for a nice sort of acronym that you could use that would be handy, and I zeroed in on AC/DC, not just because their music could possibly help get you in a great mood, but also because that's the way I rock and roll. I got this from Life Hacks, and also this is something that's a useful tool for you to address any situation that you're presented with. Okay, so are you ready? What does AC/DC stand for? A is acknowledge and honor the emotion. All right? You don't need to label it, you don't need to judge it. It's there within you. There's something that you're experiencing. It could be a hardness in your throat. It could be a feeling of electricity in your spine. It could be a surge that you sometimes understand as excitement, as happiness. Sometimes we make ourselves miserable with meta emotions. We feel an emotion and then we feel guilty because we felt that. How can I possibly feel happy at a time like this? How can I know I'm feeling so embarrassed that I'm feeling sad about my own state, about my own finances when people are going through so much. Do you see how all of this judgment can create more suffering within us and in the people around us? So step number 1, A, is just acknowledge and honor the emotion. The first C is consider the positive intention of the emotion. Emotions are so powerful because they tell us so much about who we are. Okay? Your anger tells you what your values are. Your indignation tells you what your sense of fairness is. Your sadness tells you where your attachment is and where your sense of loss comes from. Your love tells you where your attractions or your attachments are. So let's look for the root of this to understand ourselves better. Okay, this is something that's not so much about socialization, but about who we truly are. So let's learn to enjoy that and learn from it. A, C, D. D, double check your story. This is a very practical tool, which is that, and I'm going to start with an aphorism that I've always lived by, which is that never attribute malice to something that can just as easily be explained by idiocy, and I'll add to that ignorance or somebody else's helplessness. Okay? Reframe your story. Recheck your facts. Okay, we're going to very often, because again, with the more our environment is stressing us, the more information overload we have, the less resources we're actually going to be able to give to think clearly, to give the appropriate response. And that's why we often react with feelings of threat, responses of threat, or responses of wanting to protect ourselves, right? But if we just stop, check what the facts are, also check our beliefs. Very often we come from a belief that, you know what, why can't he treat me the way I would have the way I would have treated him? Now he is he, you are you. It's an erroneous belief to think that he needs to behave exactly the way that you would have in this particular situation. We have many other such beliefs. I ought to do this because that's how we've been conditioned. I should do this, must do this. This is not a good thing to do. All of these. And we have several filters as well that we live with. That's a whole different topic in itself. But that's a good time to just check. Okay? Again, your feelings are the best cue to that. Check your facts. Check your beliefs. That's the C. That's the D. Double check your facts and your beliefs. And the last C, ACDC, is choose your action. All right? We do not have the right to the outcome of our action, but we do have a right to the choice of action. Now for this, regardless of your religious beliefs, I'm just going to take you into a little bit of allegory. When you think about the Mahabharata or the Bhagavad Gita, what is the most enduring image that you see, like in posters or on the cover of books? What is it that we normally encounter? What is the picture that we see? Yes, it is the picture of a chariot, a rider in the chariot. Who's the rider? No answers? Okay, so we'll start with the chariot. The chariot signifies our body, all right, our material body. The rider is Arjuna, okay? In front of Arjuna are 5 horses. So Arjuna represents the individual soul that resides within the body. In front of Arjuna are 5 horses. Why 5? Because they represent our 5 senses. All right? And where is this chariot situated? In the famous or infamous battlefield. And the chariot has now got to traverse a path through that field. It now has to choose a path through the field, make its way through the field. Because it is a battle. And what is the battle between? The forces of evil, which is the manifold desires that are vying for our attention, the core of us, hundreds of them and the thousands in their army behind, endless. And the 5 Pandavas, who are sort of the better angels of our nature, right? The kind of people that we could be. And how do we make this choice? How do we rein our senses? How do we guide our senses into making the right choice? And that is where we have a charioteer behind us, depicted by Krishna, who is the conscious choice maker, who is on the path, who chooses the path of righteousness to help guide this chariot through the battlefield and bring victory for the divinity within us, and choose through the path of righteousness. And when we choose a path that is our personal path of righteousness, but is also in alignment with the natural laws of the universe, we are then navigating our path of dharma. Okay, so that was the story there. But the moral of that story is that we can choose our actions, we can choose our responses, and when our senses are in the control of our higher intellect, we can guide our emotions without labeling them, without judging them, but take them in the direction that we want to go in, bring us peace of mind, bring us harmony, bring us resonance with the world. So that was pretty much what I wanted to tell you today. And if there are any questions, I will take them. Thank you all so much for joining me today. If you want to reach out to me after this again, go ahead. You can email me on my website, that's dynamicliving.co, or you can ask me a question on my YouTube channel. I go by the name Sandhya Krishnan, and just go ahead and ask your question in the comments of any of the videos, and I'll be sure to answer it. How are we feeling about the topic of today's talk? How are we feeling about today? Do we have any questions? Was I clear? Okay, thank you for the love. I really appreciate it. Okay, yes, we did get a guess. There was, somebody's identified the book. Did anybody know which the pop star was? Which was the pop star I mentioned? What about the 2 foreign words that we've adopted into English? I also spoke about a Polynesian island, the heavy metal band. Any guesses? Any guesses? This is a test of your active listening, and active listening comes from being fully present in the moment, which in turn helps you stay focused, which in turn keeps your mind a lot calmer. Because multitasking again exhausts the mind. Remember, so many sensory inputs and us having to allocate resources to all of them. Okay, I'm going to give you the answers. Should I not, guys? Should I give the answers or not? Okay, I won't. I'll leave it to you to do the guessing on the chat, because I know this talk is going to be up for a while. Let me not give it away. So, with your permission, I'm going to end this for today. Thank you again so much for joining me, and thank you to the Purple Turtles, and stay safe everybody, and work with what you have. You are very, very entitled to what you feel inside, and it is okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to feel like you can't process everything on any particular day, but know also that you have the strength within you to direct how you'd like to respond to things. It doesn't have to be immediate, but it's something that can be exercised, it can be practiced, and it can take you in the direction that you would like your life to go in. Thank you all, and stay safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye.